And it is really important to remember that this is not how international agreements usually work. You know, if we violate a single clause in NAFTA or TRIPS under the World Trade Organization, we get hauled into trade court and threatened with a trade war. There are consequences. Remember when Bolivia threw out Bechtel because the price of water had increased, I think something like 300%. They had made it illegal to collect rainwater. Bolivia was sued for $26 million for doing that. There are consequences, we used to think, for breaking contracts. So when it comes to the environment, there is clearly a lack of political will to enforce agreements. And when governments make a mockery of international law like that, then there is only one thing that can fill the gap: social movements, civil society launching boycotts and divestment campaigns that exact real costs from the offenders. As some of you know, and as some of you heard on the streets, I've taken some flack for supporting this tactic in the face of Israel's flagrant violations of international law, and by the way, I make no apologies for that, but I think Canada should face its own set of boycotts. I think Canada should face its own set of boycotts and sanctions for the tar sands, and indeed that movement is well underway. We heard recently that Whole Foods and Bed Bath & Beyond have both announced that they will boycott fuel coming out of the tar sands. California has adopted a low-carbon fuel law that bars fuel from the tar sands, and many states may follow as well. The Pentagon is starting to cut back on its consumption of tar sands oil to meet new requirements that government agencies reduce their emissions. I mean, when Bed Bath & Beyond and the Pentagon are lined up against you, that's bombs in bathtubs. Even Alberta has to start paying attention. I think what's really going to catch their attention is that oil corporations are being targeted directly, and about time. Shell and BP are both facing anti-tar sands shareholder resolutions in the coming months. We're going to hear about a great campaign closer to home against Royal Bank, the ATM machine of the tar sands. And much of the anti-Olympics activism that's been going on in Vancouver, very brave activism, has focused on dispelling the myth that these are the greenest Olympics ever by outing the tar sands sponsors of the Olympics, Royal Bank and Petro-Canada, both up to their necks in the tar sands. You know, talking about Royal Bank brings back the days of the anti-apartheid struggle for me. I always remember when my brother Seth marched to the Royal Bank and closed his account at age 15. Maybe it's time for us to cancel our accounts once again to prevent the future of climate apartheid that we appear to be hurtling towards. Our government has turned our nation into the world's leading climate criminal for two reasons: because it is profitable and because there are no consequences for its lawlessness. So our task should be clear. We have to impose consequences from below by making investing in the tar sands a liability, not a windfall. And the consequences for the corporate world will not end there. When we talk about climate reparation, we talk about those scary numbers like $600 billion. What gets people's back up is the idea that that money is going to come out of their pockets. But why should that be? Why should it come from regular taxpayers? With the right kind of taxes and penalties, the oil and gas sector, big coal, agribusiness, and the banks that finance them, the players that actually are responsible for both climate change and underwriting the climate change denial movement, can be made to foot this bill. The polluter should pay. Keep in mind, just remember that Exxon has made more profits every year over the past 3 years than any company in history. I think they should pay. The corporate welfare from which they have all benefited so lavishly should be returned to public treasuries and transformed into planetary welfare. I think David Lewis would approve. Thank you.